Hi, I'm Otter, and on today's show, we're going to talk about all things and the things you need to know about DM NAX, what it is, what it's made of, and how we work with it. They gave me a mics, they gave me a camera, said make a show, so here we go. So what is DM NAX? DM NAX is actually part and parcel of DM NVX. It came about in the beginning. So DM NVX moves audio around via AES-67. Great protocol, lots of good interoperability, specifically with other protocols like Dante, which is commonly used, but there's no application layer for it. So DM NAX is that application layer for moving AES-67 audio throughout our AV over IP network. With that, naturally, you need some edge pieces. So the product line is made up of the edge pieces that are part of that application layer, so that as a holistic approach to AV over IP, we can move everything, anywhere, when we need it. So let's talk to Ekin Banal, Director of Core Technologies and Strategic Partnerships, Product Management, and one who was around as NAX came about.
It all goes back to basically, I think it was somewhere around 2017, where I was sitting with Fred and Alex, and as we were looking at the next generation of MVX that was hitting the market, or at least the first generation of MVX at that point, we were looking at how we were going to get audio into the mix as well. So obviously analog audio was built into NVX, HDMI was built into there, but now we really needed a way to transport that on the network. So looking at the different standards out there and the different technologies out there, there was AES-67 was kind of up and coming at that point. Dante had pretty good market recognition, but it was still early days there. And there's older technology out there that we thought wouldn't be sensible for us. The beauty of AES-67 was that we could potentially update firmware in the field in the future and enable NVX devices that were already out in the market. So AES-67 had a lot of the capabilities that we wanted in terms of transporting things on the network. It had the time sync that we had, that what we were looking for. This was all inherent in Dante as well, but the problem with Dante was that you'd have to bake in those chips in the IP cores right from the start. You couldn't develop them and put them into the FPGA like what we wanted to do with NVX. So more and more, as we kind of looked into the evolution of where we thought audio over the network is going to go, AES-67 and Dante, there's a lot of similarities there. So we focused on the part that the IEEE actually agreed on in terms of how we synchronize audio and what the fundamentals of getting the audio on the network are. And we put that core technology into our products right from scratch. So when we kicked off at NVX, all of it was pre-baked to be able to put audio over IP. And in fact, NAX first came into the NVX product portfolio somewhere around 2019, 2020 as enablement in the FPGA. We took advantage of the clock circuits that we had put in way back and enabled AES-67. What's unique about NAX versus AES-67, and I don't say versus really, it's more of a in parallel to it. It's a layer that sits on top of it. So there were some challenges with the AES-67 that Dante did a really good job about, which Dante had a nice portfolio of software tools that allowed you to set routes and get routes, et cetera. And AES-67 was a great transport technology, and it was really created to be able to create interoperability between different audio over IP standards. So what we had to realize was AES-67 was a great engine to get us the audio onto the network and distribute it, but we still needed an application layer to make it easy for our Crestron custom programmers out there, or Crestron programmers in general, to be able to take audio that they're usually just using in a cross matrix and be able to take it from source to a destination, or from a destination and manipulate it and send it out back onto the network. So what we did was we took AES-67, we used the open source code that's out there, or the open standard out there, and we developed our own implementation of AES-67. And so we're 100% compliant with the open standard of AES-67, But then on top of that, we added this Crestron goodness. That's what we do, John. We add this beautiful Crestron layer of goodness that makes things easier to configure and set up for our dealers and our end users.
So there you go. It's AES 67 with an application layer put over it. Now, from the product line perspective, it's a number of things, including PoE speakers, I/O edge devices, and amplifiers. And there's a number of questions that come along with those and things that you should know. A lot of it's centered around how do I get these edge devices to play nicely in my Dante environment. So in the standalone applications, that's one thing. In the larger applications, that's another thing. And I'd like to take a look at both of those circumstances, look at the settings, talk a little bit about the programming, and then ultimately talk about how we interact inside Dante controller and what we need to do to get streams moving through. The basic setup of almost all of the edge devices is the same. When you come into settings, you're going to find the usual system setups. The first stop I want to make is under commissioning. So any of the devices that can stream out need to have a multicast IP range. Now I know normally in the Dante range you're in .69. I tend to stick to the 239.8, which is where I put all my NVX. So all my NAX cohabitates in there. So here you'll see that I set a starting multicast address. Keep in mind that it can stream 2 streams, 2 channel each. So by entering in my starting multicast address and assign addresses, it's going to automatically grab the next one for the second output stream. Now, as far as the inputs and outputs go, once addressing is assigned, if I go and take a look at the output channels, so each one of those has their own individual fader and level and control. You get a signal presence, signal level, and then under the action menu, you'll find that you have your basic tonal control, time delay, your minimum maximum default, signal present, and then your speaker EQ. So every output's got this parametric EQ, and if we just take a look at the available, we've got notch, treble shelf, bass shelf, low pass, and high pass, as I mentioned before. So you can configure each one of these. You can enable or disable it right off the bat. So that would be per output channel. Now on the input side, we also have a set of faders, signal presence, nominal, and a mute, and then the mixing. So the way the mixing works here is basically you assign your input to your output and you're off to the races. You'll notice that there's a little marker here. If I click on these, this gives me the ability to once again trim in the middle of the mix. So you have your input stage, you've got your mix stage, and then you've got your output stage. So this is true across the board for all of the edge devices, for your ins and outs. Now, one of the more interesting things about it is the actual NAX streams area. First of all, you'll get your clock data with its priority setting. You'll get your transmitters. This gives you an opportunity, once again, since we did in commissioning, we already set these, it went ahead and assumed them. I can come in and custom name these. This is how they will advertise themselves out to the networks. And then you'll see on the receiver side that we also have a set of stream sets. If you put a valid address, it's going to attempt to start the stream to send it out. Now, here's the thing, or receive it, sorry. So in there, one of the things we have is we have a show streams. So if the stream is stopped, I can click on this, and then I can come down and pick up any of the advertised streams on the network. Now this becomes important because later when we talk about Dante and how we pick up after creating an outflow from a Dante device, how we pick up that AES 67 stream, this is part and parcel of that. So for a basic tour, that's it. And you'll find that this is true across the board. Let's look at the other end and talk about speakers and amplifiers. So you'll notice that on at least the speaker, there is no commissioning. This is a receive device only. So we do have output channels, but they are the 4 speakers that are part of the Saros NAX speaker. right? So you have the internal speaker, and then you can have up to 3 passives hooked up. Each individual output, of course, just like we saw before, same exact type of settings, right? A little bit on the LED behavior, right? Faults, and then the EQ. When we come to look at the input channels, you'll see that we have stream 1, stream 2, and the mixer. So I can apply anything there. So the signal routing and acquisition are pretty straightforward here. Everything that I can do here on the interface, I can do within programming. So we have an equal part. And then there's the amplifiers, which all generally behave the same because most of the DM NAX amplifiers can take input and send them back out. Where does it get a little different? Well, when we want to start playing with Dante. So I'm going to launch my Dante controller. And here you can see that I have a couple of receivers. AES 67 receivers do not show up in Dante controller. Why? It's a Dante controller. AES 67 is a compatibility mode as far as Dante is concerned. So, one, how do I get that going? Well, so I take my Dante device, and you can click on either one of these, but it's going to bring up the subcategory, and you go to the AES config. You enable it. You'll notice that I've already set my prefix to the .8 prefix, so the 239.8, so that it cohabitates with everything. By default, Dante uses a 239.69 setup. So if you haven't enabled this, I can enable it here. I can set my prefix. What about transmitting? What about getting out of the DSP and back to my AES 67 or NAX edge points? Well, we do that over here on the transmit side, and we do it using a thing called Create Multicast Flow. Because we've turned on AES 67, we have a method to create basically an RTP out that's AES 67. So I'm going to select AES 67. It's going to say destination auto. You can do that, but it's going to pick something out there. If we just go ahead and create the flow, you'll see that it's at 239.8.212. Great, it's out of my address range. I can go get that. It is available. So if I come to my Saros speaker, I come to my NAX stream, I come here to my search, and then in this list, I will find the DSP, and then I can start the stream, because this one I don't have on auto initiate, and we're off to the races. However, if you want it to be, say, tighter to your address schema, that's easily done as well. So I'm going to stop my stream. I'm going to flip back over to my Dante controller. And I'm going to go ahead and delete that one. And I'm going to redo the flow, but I'm going to do it as an AES 67. I'm going to choose manual. Gives you a great warning here. Hey, you're doing this. You can create a conflict, which is very true. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to do my 239.8.0 dot, and I'm going to put this in my upper ranges. So I'm going to do a 151. Now, because I'm a steward and I have a little list of all my addresses that I've used, I know it's there. We also know that the default port is 5004. That is true for all of the Crestron gear. And in this case, I want to pump out channel 31 and 32, because that's what we agreed on between me and the DSP person. And I'm going to create it. So now here's my stream, here's my port. I'm going to go ahead and close that off. And now I can come in here, and if I go look for that stream again, I'm going to find it here. I'm going to go ahead and hit this, say OK, and I've now subscribed to that stream. So when using Dante controller, you can use it to route AES 67 endpoints into the Dante environment. To get things out of the Dante devices and into the AES world where we can see them, because that's where we live, we need to create these outflows. So there's NAX in a nutshell. For this video, we were in commercial mode, also known as advanced. In the hits, I'll cover residential/standard, commercial/advanced mode. Thanks for watching. Well, as you know, I like to add things at the end. So here you go. Small scavenger hunt. Look for the clues in the description. It's somewhere in here. There's a number of things. First one in gets the win. Thanks for watching.